Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I am Katie Henry, the VP of Quality and HSE for dormakaba, and I'm here today with Jen. Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, Jennifer Holmes. I'm the Senior Sales Director at Motorola Solutions. I played D1 basketball at Stanford. Katie, where did you play?
I played D3 volleyball for Earlham College.
Awesome.
So we're here today to have an informal conversation really designated for two audiences. We hope to reach the student athletes thinking about what does life look like after sports, as well as universities and athletic departments who are trying to support them through that transition. A lot of times when people hear the word security industry, I think many assume and think about, the bouncer outside of a nightclub or any old security guard, and assume it's kind of narrow or highly technical. But the reality is it's so much more than that.
Yeah, Katie, I think a lot of people, like you were saying, kind of overlook the security industry, if you will, coming from sport, right? When we come from sport, we have such an identity that's tied to sport. And so we think, hey, I'm in sport, I want to stay in sport. And so we do things or see things that are right in front of us, like apparel brands or, television commentators or coaches or refereeing. And they kind of forget that, oh, hey, that guard that just checked your bag to make sure that everything's good to go. And then that badge that you just swiped in order to get into the building, that's good to go. Wait, never mind, you have to use the intercom because the badge didn't work. All of those things are part of the security industry. And our industry, if you look around you, is so focused in sport as well that, again, I think people overlook it because they're just, I want to go work at insert apparel brand here, right? When they forget that there's so many other opportunities.
Yeah, good point. So today we want to introduce everyone to PropelHER and share why this industry, being the security industry, is such a strong fit for student athletes, as well as help paint the picture of what universities can do to engage with us. But Jennifer, maybe before we get there, since you mentioned that you played D1 basketball for Stanford, why don't you tell us a little bit about sort of your story and how you landed in this industry? And I think it really mirrors what so many D1 athletes experience.
Yeah, well, I think for both of us, so even me as a former D1 athlete, not as a former D1 athlete, but as a female, as a former athlete, sports shaped so much of who I am, who we are, not just physically, though I don't have to get up at 6 a.m. to do a workout if I don't want to anymore, but also mentally and emotionally. If I just think of some of the things in my day to day, even in, coming into this webinar that we're doing here, preparation. Right, we just don't show up, right? We watch game tape, we study playbooks, we practice, and so some of the athletes that I've seen in the security industry, I feel like I want to include myself in this, are oftentimes some of the most prepared, showing up to meetings or some high-level security audits, anything in between. I mentioned high-level security audits. That seems like it's something that's probably a high-pressure situation, and I think as an athlete, we learned a lot about calm under pressure. We learned a lot about hey, you made a mistake here. You need to move on and move on quickly and continue with the mission. We can go back and review it later, of course, and we always want to, improve, but that preparation, that calm under pressure. So with all of that to be said, preparation, when I was transitioning out of sport and into the real world, as we'll say, I did not prepare. I thought okay, well, I'll figure it out. I didn't take advantage of the advisors at the school that we had plenty. I didn't really think about things outside of sport because I thought, hey, maybe, even with 3 ACLs, tears, maybe I'll still go pro, right? And so I kind of got to a point where I was like, I'll figure it out later, which is the terrible idea. But fortunately, it worked out for me. And oddly enough, it worked out for me that I found a very fulfilling career in the security industry. But some of the things that I think a lot of student athletes, as they're making this transition, this identity crisis that I mentioned earlier, they want to stay close to sport because sport is identity. And I think that what helped me reframe it was there's a lot of soft skills in sport that we learn that translate so perfectly into professional world or security industry that it's not an identity crisis of losing sport. It's a transferring of that identity into a new, just a new identity, if you will. And then the other thing that was a little bit tricky in figuring out is, how do you translate 40 hours in the gym to a resume. And you think that I don't have any transferable skills, but if I just say one, I was a point guard and I'm running the offense, you can translate that into managing high pressure teams towards a strategic direction, right? There's always a reframe that once you think about it, you're like, oh yeah, of course, so my experience as an athlete, I feel like really has led a lot to the success that I've had thus far in the security industry. Even when I didn't necessarily prepare, though I don't recommend that, I would definitely say, but looking back, this leadership, resilience, problem solving is something that I use every day.
Very cool. Yeah, and you're exactly right. That moment of transition and sort of the change management of all of that. I think to your point, whether you were a D1 athlete or D3 athlete, the time that you've committed day in and day out to your sport, you're suddenly, in this bit of identity crisis of now what? And nobody thinks about it. Arguably, maybe not even student athletes, right? We're so focused on the fun of college that seeing life outside of that is not always in focus. But that's exactly why we started PropelHER, of course, because we are here to help support that moment of transition and really help to build up inroads to the security industry. So PropelHER, just to share a little bit of background, it's a program under the Women in Security Forum, which is part of SIA, the Security Industry Association. And at its core, we exist to create access. We want access to the industry that many students don't realize is an option. And Jen, you highlighted perfectly how this is an industry that is still very close to sports and very involved with sports on a regular basis. We provide access to mentors and access to real career pathways for the student athletes to consider. We also provide a lot of support to universities. So whether you're career advisors, coaches, anybody at a university that's trying to support your student athletes in understanding what options are out there post-graduation, we want to help you with that and provide easy tools and resources to at least introduce the student athletes to the security industry. The programs that we've created are really not meant to provide jobs, but rather to help highlight everything that is available in the security industry and kind of also just remind people that you don't have to have a background in security to get started in the industry. Speaking from my personal experience, I just fell into this industry about 3 years ago, and I previously came from manufacturing experience in completely unrelated fields. I love it here. I'm excited about the industry. It's going to take a lot to get me to leave this industry now that I see how broad and exciting it is. But PropelHER is amazing because it's not just about placing students into jobs, but expanding what they believe is possible. And one of the things about this security industry in general, and you had mentioned, discussion around some of those transferable skills that student athletes are creating that they probably don't even realize. But those skills that already exist are exactly what we need in student athletes. So maybe you can talk a little bit, Jennifer, just from your perspective, why you think the security industry is a great fit for student athletes.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I think I touched on a few of those before, but for repetition, because that's what we do as athletes, is repeat, repeat, repeat until we get better. We're used to being under pressure, so calm under pressure. We're used to being really, held accountable for what we've been up to. Teamwork, constant improvement. These show up in the professional environments every day. I was kind of talking about some transferable skills or just transferable thinking. In sports, we call it game day readiness. In security, we call it operational excellence. The security industry is a team sport because no one protects an organization alone. And with that, athletes are naturally threat oriented. So we're trained to look for gaps in the defense and protect our home turf. And all of these are, just skills and thoughts and mentality that translate really well into the security industry today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. I mean, I think what I hear you saying is honestly, anybody who's been successful in athletics, they've already really built a strong enough foundation to jump right into the security industry. I want to talk a little bit now about why PropelHER matters for the universities and how we can help support those programs. Um, Jennifer, you had mentioned to me a little bit ago that you spoke with some coach friends of yours, and maybe you can share sort of what they mentioned. And I think it's interesting for the team to hear.
Yeah, some of my friends, as I said, maybe I went into the security industry, they went into sport and they're phenomenal coaches. And one of, I think, the biggest challenges for them is that they're the coach and they're making sure that, they're providing connections for their athletes to resources and make sure that they stay eligible to play in the sport, which is what we all want to do. But they're not experts in advising students through your student athletes, through what is their life beyond sport. But a lot of these universities have phenomenal advisors, phenomenal tools, phenomenal connections that, being connected over there and actually taking advantage of that, which I did not. And I regret that, though I'm happy where I'm at. But, it would have made me a lot less anxious when I was leaving, when I was leaving sport in order to come over here. So taking advantage of these resources that these coaches are doing everything they can to make sure you're aware of, but like it really then is on you to hold yourself accountable to researching and seeing what's interesting, and then taking the next step and exploring if that's a career that you think is good for you.
Yeah, great point. And so we are really here as well, happy to support those advisor offices, career departments. We have, as I mentioned, a number of resources available to support that also. So if you're watching this and thinking to yourself, okay, what do we do next? Whether you are a student athlete that's interested and excited, or you are a part of this coaching staff, administrative staff, career advisors, we are here to tell you the next step is simple. Really, we encourage you to learn more about PropelHER, explore the ways in which it can support both you, the student athlete, or our listeners that are from the universities. We are going to put the link for our website here, and that contains a ton of information, including the career roadmap that we have created, links to explore various industry jobs that exist out there. As well, you'll find on the page the direct emails for our group leaders, Alice and Sean, but absolutely feel free as well to reach out directly to either Jen or I. We are very excited to support you wherever you are.
Yeah, and if you're, a student athlete watching this, as Katie was saying, and you're thinking, I don't know exactly what I want to do yet, like that's totally okay. Like I said, I had no idea what I wanted to do next. But hopefully, listening to this, you've done a little bit of the work to at least look into things that could be interesting. And so curiosity is enough to get started. So like, Katie said, please reach out to her, please reach out to me, go to the links on the website, do the research, talk with your advisors. Advisors, do your research so that when the students come and talk to you, or you can lean or lead them, to this great industry.
Yeah, I think if there's one takeaway that I got from today, it's this: your skills, your leadership, your drive are needed, and the security industry is so ready for you. So thank you so much, everyone that's listening. Thank you, Jen, so much for the time. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.